This week's Mega Farm Show comes to you from Nakuru County at a farm known as Highlands Potato Farm that is situated at the top of the Menengai crater. The farm stands close to 500 acres and mainly practices mechanized potato farming. The farm was started back in 2012 and it has since adopted the various uses of machines in their farming practices. Come along as we take a tour around this huge mega farm. The farm focuses on multiplication of potato seeds and also grows potatoes for sale, targeting the local market. William Donoman is the farm manager. He takes us back in history about the farm.
We started with potatoes in 2012 when there was an agreement, a bilateral agreement between the Dutch government and the Kenyan government to allow the importation of potato tubers to help with the availability of certified seed for potato farmers. Kenya has a very big lack of certified seed available to farmers. It's seen at about 2%, but the demand is currently met. And hopefully with this system we can help out a little bit in adding to that so that we can have more certified seed available to Kenyan farmers.
William explains that they first started by registering their seed varieties on the national list, as well as build structures and machineries used in farming the various potato crops. He further explains that the type of potato varieties they currently grow in the country can see farmers produce up to 5 times of what they've been producing.
Once the varieties were registered, we worked on basically finding a place in Kenya where to grow and to also do a test for ourselves to see if our varieties do well here in these climatic conditions. So we did 2 years of testing. We found that we had very good results on our varieties. The yields were very good, which also gave us and our partners as investors the confidence to invest in a setup.
The main reason why most farmers are turning to mechanized potato farming is so as to meet the growing demand of tubers. The expansion of urban centers within local towns has led to the increasing popularity of fast food joints. This in turn has created a rapid increase in the demand for various varieties of potatoes, which is dependent on the end product in the value chain targeted by the different clients seeking this tuber. Highlands Potato Farm decided to settle at the top of Menengai crater once they were certain that indeed they could produce quality potato seeds.
It consists of roughly 500 hectares. It's a farm that's traditionally been wheat for the last 15 years. And we have now come on here to do potatoes also as a rotationary crop. We started building a potato store. We have a store of capacity of 3,500 tons. And we purchased the harvesting equipment, some planting equipment, ridging field cultivation equipment, storage, cooling equipment, and so on. And it comes up to a total investment of roughly 3.5 million euros. So it's quite a large investment for potatoes in Kenya. And this is our first step. Once this is a success, we hope to further expand and do a bit more.
Being a seed multiplication farm and going by the Kenyan Farmers Association rules, William disclosed to us that it was mandatory for the company to have a disinfecting trough right at the entrance of the farm. This, he says, is meant to prevent any diseases from entering the farm.
Because of the lack of seed in Kenya for all these years, people have using home-saved seed, which has really increased the disease pressure in Kenya. So we really have to be on our toes and make sure that we don't bring anything into the farm. Everything has to be disinfected. All the machines that we have do not leave the farm because of that risk. Any workers that come in, their shoes get disinfected. People that go into the fields, their hands get disinfected. and the tools that are used are also disinfected. So we need to, we try and really make sure that we're working in a very clean environment.
Out of the 13 potato varieties registered under the Agrico organization, William says they have been able to farm and produce at least 4 of these varieties.
At the moment we are multiplying 4 different varieties. The reason why we've chosen these 4 of the varieties that we've got registered is that we've noticed that there are certain uses for certain types of potatoes. When I talk to a lot of people in Kenya, they say, they ask me, do you have the red potato or the white one? So, in Europe you find that there's a lot of different varieties and varieties are used for many different types of cooking. In Kenya, people generally, that hasn't come in yet, and we are trying to help with that. At the moment, what we're harvesting here is marquise. Marquise is a very nice French fry variety, very good for chips. It's become very popular. A lot of the processors who are doing French fries are buying marquise, and a lot of restaurateurs are buying marquise because it's got a good taste, a good frying quality, and so on. Then we have another variety called Destiny. Destiny is more of a round potato with very shallow eyes, very high dry matter content. That's a very preferred variety for crisping. So you'll find that some processors who are doing crisps in Nairobi, they've preferred Destiny. It does very well, and they're also starting to look for farmers who are growing Destiny for their supply. We have Rudolph, which is a red variety. It's a relatively easy variety to grow. It's a nice, strong variety. It'll have good yields. Tastes very nice. That's being preferred on the local market now. People are picking it up. The taste is good, so the demand for that is there as well. And then we have a nice sort of oval shaped potato. It's called Manitou. Manitou is a nice red skin or pink skin potato, very smooth, looks very nice. Can be used for many things, home cooking for French fries or mash or baked potatoes. It's just a more general purpose variety. This variety has become very popular in the supermarkets. Nakuru was selling it, and a few other grocery stores. They've really picked up Manitou as a preferred variety for them. People have this idea that potatoes are only grown or can only grow in high altitude areas, in colder areas. It's not necessarily true. Holland is one of the biggest exporters of potatoes, and they do most of it at sea level or under sea level. Temperature isn't always a big factor. It does when in some very hot areas, but you'll find in places where it's very hot, like in Iraq or northern Sudan or Egypt, potatoes are also grown. What you do find here is in higher altitude areas you have less insects, and that helps against the spread of disease, if you're in a higher altitude area. But generally most of these varieties can be grown in most places in Kenya. Yeah.
Good land preparation is paramount in potato farming. The soil first needs to be well conditioned and free of weeds. William explains that they use the rotary ridger to prepare the soil and give beds a consistent tilth and good aeration. This is necessary to ensure tubers are able to multiply sideways.
What I'd always recommend to farmers is if they have grown potatoes in the past or they haven't, first thing what I always recommend them to do is test your soils. Without doing proper soil analysis, you don't know what soils you're growing in, you don't know what fertilizers you need to do. If you do buy fertilizer without testing your soils, you're blindly putting fertilizer on, not knowing if it'll actually work very well. But it is, potatoes, one of the things I always want to emphasize to people is potatoes is a high intensive crop. Seed is expensive, inputs are expensive, all the chemicals, the spraying, the labor is expensive, but Kenya has very good prices. So if you grow your potatoes well and you really look after it, and you are a farmer and you are putting your hands in the soil and you're checking your potatoes on a daily basis and spraying them on a weekly basis and really doing it, you're going to get very good yields and you'll make good profits out of it. And it's absolutely worth all the inputs that you put in. Farmers who don't do that, they think they can put it in the ground and they can come back after 3 months and find something, they'll be highly disappointed. It's a lot more difficult than maize or wheat, but then again the prices are much better. With potato planting, it's very important that you have the right soil cultivation. We make sure that when we start, we make sure the fields are clean. There's no big rocks or it's relatively level. There's not a lot of weeds. If there are weeds, that they've been killed off before planting. Then what we do is we do soil testing in the different fields, where we get to see what we have in the fields, if there's any nutrients we're missing, how much energy we need to add.
Once the soil is set for planting, William says they then broadcast fertilizer with the fertilizer spreader. This is mainly to ensure the soil's pH and fertility remains even on the entire farm. Once done preparing the soil, they then introduce the hoop tank cultivator, whose job is mainly to mix up fertilizer with the soil.
With the fertilizer spreader, we broadcast openly over the fields the amount of fertilizer that we need for planting. That then gets followed with the hoop tank cultivator, which cultivates the soil. It breaks it up about 28 to 30 centimeters. And that cultivator also has a ridging hood, so it takes all the soil and puts all the soil in ridges. While doing that, it also takes all the fertilizer that was broadcasted on the field. They all end up in the ridges by doing that.
After making ridges, Williams explains that they then use a planter to place seeds in the right depth of the soil.
Now we have nice big ridges, big size, nice big shape, and the potatoes are there. When we plant, there's usually a bit of moisture in the soil, so there's moisture. It's nice and warm. The potatoes they'll start to grow, and then we let the potatoes come up to about 2 inches above the ground, and then we do a re-ridging. When the potatoes come up at about 2 inches, then also we get a lot of weeds, and by re-ridging we cover the potatoes, but we also cover the weeds, so it blocks one round of herbicide.
During the growing process, the tubers are always not exposed to sunlight or any form of light, as William explains.
The potato plant, what we've seen here, normally in 6 weeks it has a closed canopy in the field, so that also prevents more weeds from coming up. We have a spray program that we do for fungicides. It's a weekly spray, and we have an insecticide program that we put together with the fungicides. So every week we spray a fungicide and an insecticide to try and keep the crop clean and from funguses like late blight.
To prevent the crops against weeds and pests, the potato crops are sprayed twice a week.
We have a variety of different products that we use, and we make sure we rotate the products, so we spray one product twice, and then another product, and then another product, so it prevents from building resistance.
A potato crop is fairly productive, but in order to achieve its potential yield, it should be supplied with sufficient nutrients. This entails provision of both macro and micronutrients. For
the seed crops, at that point we start measuring and we start checking the yields every week to see what the yields are and what the sizes are of the seed.
Once confirmed that the tubers are of the right size, they then kill off the top vegetative cover of the crop and let the tuber underneath the ground to harden. The crops are usually harvested immediately after the green leafy part has completely dried.
Then once it's sprayed off, it slowly dies. Then the potatoes, we leave them in the soil until the skin is hardened and set enough. And at that point we start harvesting. have to leave the potatoes in the ground for at least 2 weeks for the skin to set and for the potato to harden a bit. So that reduces then the damage during harvest. And then we try and harvest as soon as possible afterwards. We try and make sure that we still have enough moisture in the soil. At the moment it's very dry, but it's the very end of our harvesting season. Preferably if we have a bit of moisture, we have more soil on the web. And as I said, potatoes are very sensitive, you've got to be very gentle with them. If it's more moist, more soil is on the web as it goes up the web, so it protects the potatoes. They have a bit more cushioning. Now it's very dry, unfortunately, we still have to continue. The soil drops through the web a lot faster, which has less protection on it. However, we have also put rubber strips on the web to try and cushion any fall or any bouncing of the potatoes to try and protect it as much as possible. So yeah, we try and get the potatoes out of the field as soon as we can to get it into storage, to really cure the potato, to look after it the best.